Hi there, I'm Michelle Last and I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator in the UK, and I'm going to be using this Inspiring Snapdragons stamp set today, and we're going to be creating this card. So rather than just the usual getting your stamp, inking it up in the ink pad and stamping straight on the card, I'm going to show you a slightly different way of doing it today, using a wet wipe and creating your own multicoloured ink pad using wet wipes. So let's get started. So let's pop the stamps out of the way and grab my little silicone mat here. These are just made of silicone, and they're sort of like the baking parchment that you purchase, but they're a bit thicker. They're available from my Stampin' Up shop, and they're super useful for doing messy techniques that won't ruin the surface of your table or create too much of a mess. So I'm just getting my wet wipes out, and I'm just lining the silicone mat with a double layer of wet wipes. It can be as many layers as you wish, and I'm doing this straight off first because we need to get the ink moving and blending. So first up, I know that I want a pink Snapdragon, so I'm using Berry Burst, Bubble Bath and Melon Mambo. And what I will say is try and do more of the lighter colours and less of the stronger colour. So this is the lightest colour, so I'm going to add lots of this. So I'm squeezing the ink refill for the Bubble Bath ink pad quite hard. Some you'll have to press harder than others. There we go. If I press harder, you can see I've got a bit of a bigger splodges. So the aim here is to cover up all of the wet wipe so that you won't see any of the white background. And I just need to ink up an area that's bigger than the stamp that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to be using this one here, so that would be plenty big enough. So there's my Bubble Bath. I'll set that aside. This is the Berry Burst, and I'm going to do random patterns on top of the Bubble Bath. Bearing in mind this is quite dark, so that's probably enough of the Bubble Bath. And then I've got some Melon Mambo, and I'm going to try and go where there's white on the wet wipe. But you just need to fill the space. You don't have to fill it completely right now, because what you'll find, these are water-based inks. The wet wipes are obviously, my ones are water-based, but they will blend, the colours will blend into each other. You can start to see the colours blending already. So that's doing exactly what we need it to do. So I've now got to create an orange ink pad that is going to be big enough. So I'm going to go with the orange, I'm going to go across here. So, sorry, no, yeah, the orange. So the orange one, I have Calypso Coral, Pumpkin Pie and Daffodil Delight. And remember, I'm going to go predominantly the lighter colour, which is the Daffodil Delight. Actually, the yellow, I've just looked at my card, is the bigger stamp. So as long as I make that ink pad that I'm creating bigger than that stamp, then I'm all good. So that's the yellow, the Daffodil Delight. I'm now adding the Calypso Coral, which is sort of a rusty orange colour, sort of a, I don't know how to describe it. It's not true orange, but it's quite, it still can be subtle, but it's not as dark as the Pumpkin Pie. And now I'm going to infill with some dark splots of the Pumpkin Pie. And as you can see on the pink one, you can see the colours are melding together and all going to be sort of catching into each other, so you're going to get a multicoloured layered ink pad. And now we're going to do that was the orange one. We're now going to do the yellow one. So we need predominantly Lemon Lolly, which is the very light yellow, which is beautiful, but very light. So I'm going to add lots of that. And I am going to bring back in the Daffodil Delight that I used in this one here. And then I'm going to do the Crushed Curry, which is the darkest yellow. So I'm going to fill in with Daffodil Delight. This is such a fun technique and a great way to use your ink refills, because I love my ink refills, but I use them to refill my pads, and my pads don't need refilling that often. So actually, this is another way to use up your ink refills. So filling in with the really dark Crushed Curry, and we're going to just let that set that aside for one moment and just let the colours move and meld together. Okay, so I've left the ink spreading onto the wet wipe for about 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, just until you don't really see the white in between the ink splodges, and then your handmade ink pad should be ready to use. So I've got my bit of card, and I'm just going to show you that we're going to be stamping the flowers, and we're going to stamp the flowers, but we're also going to colour in the green of the stamp. So there's a little bit at the top here and the leaves. So let's start off with our biggest one, which I'm going to use this one, and you can see I've got the leaves and the stem down the bottom, and that's going to go in my yellow ink pad. So what I'm going to do is stamp that, try and get a good impression. So press down to get some nice ink on your stamp. You can see that it's on my stamp. I wouldn't recommend that you stamp and keep moving, because all you're going to do is sort of merging all the colours, and we want this variation in colour that we've created. We don't want to make it more merged than it already is. And now what I'm going to do is get the large tip. You know that by the thick line of your marker. That's the thin line, and that's got a thin end. We'll use that for the stem shortly, and then the thick end is for the thick tip. Try not to use your markers point down when you're doing colouring like this, because you'll flatten the tip. So just now colour in the leaf with your thick end, and I'm sort of using just the edge of the nib. And the beauty of this is these are dye-based inks, which means that they're exactly the same inks as in your ink pads, and they dry really fast. So what we have to do is you can take as long as you need to colour that in. It doesn't matter that we've already got yellow on the leaves from when we stamped that earlier. We've just gone over that with the green, but then you need to re-moisten that with your breath. So re-moisten that, and then I'm going to stamp just slightly over to the left-hand side, not quite in the centre. And then you're going to see this lovely graduation in colour, and you wouldn't get that if you'd have stamped that straight onto a yellow ink pad. As you can see, we've got light and dark. It's also, the stamp itself has got like lighter and darker patches just with one impression, so that helps with that effect too. So that's the yellow one. I'm now going to do an orange one, which is actually the smallest one. So I'm going to do exactly what I did last time, press it down, get a good ink coverage, go with the thick tip and colour in the leaves and the stem, and look out for any detail at the top of the stamp that may have the stem in it. You can, if I'm not sure when I'm looking at a stamp, you know, it's hard for me to see the detail, I just actually look at the cover of the case, and that tells me that there's a little stem detail at the top there. So I'm going to add the orange one. I'm going to go pretty close. I'm trying to keep my stems straight, because that's going to make it easier to extend the stem when I do that in a moment. So there we go. We've got a bit of a bald bit there, but that's absolutely fine. We can rectify that in a moment. And now I'm going to do the pink one. So again, pick up your pink ink and colour the green parts with your green I'm using Old Olive in my Stampin' Up markers. You buy these in colour families, so you can buy them in brights, subtles, regals and neutrals. And they're super useful, especially if you make a mistake. You can use the marker pens to go back over in the same colour. So there we go. Now I'm going to re-moisten it with my breath. Actually, I've just thought, did I re-moisten the last one? Maybe that's why it didn't stamp so well. And there's the pink one, and I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do it twice so you can see what happens, and maybe you like it better. I don't know. Try it, experiment. It's going to look different every time you create the ink pad, because obviously it depends how much ink you lay down. But now I'm going to add the pink just here. There we go. And actually, I do like that one better, but it doesn't mean you should move them around. It just means that it looks like a natural bunch of flowers, because there's always variation. So what I'm going to do is get my marker pen and go for the thin end, and I'm just going to extend the stems off the end of the card like that. And there is a beautiful speckle stamp and a little dragonfly stamp in this set, so I'm going to use those also. So if I get my dragonfly, I've got the Lost Lagoon ink pad here. I'm going to gently tap it, because I was finding when I created this, I was picking up ink all around the edge of the stamp, which would ruin my card at this point. And I'm colouring the body and the head of the dragonfly with an early espresso pen, but I found that it was too dark when I went straight onto my card. So I'm going to stamp off first, and then I'm going to re-moisten with my breath, and then just stamp gently on there, and then I just get a slightly lighter shade. Now, I mentioned this little speckle stamp. I experimented, I need to bring my ink pad back in. I experimented by going over the Snapdragons with the speckle, and I really liked it. So you can add speckle all over your image if you want to, but for me, I think that just adds a really lovely natural texture and just something a bit different. So I'm going in the coordinating colour that I've already stamped and picking up the same pink, and I'm going over it like that. So there's the pink one. I just need to give that a clean, because I'm going to be picking it up in the orange colour and doing that. And that's why I was saying that we can rectify this middle section, because I can add more speckles and you won't actually see that it wasn't as dark there. And now we're going into the yellow section, and I'm adding more yellow. And I just think it looks really pretty with the speckles on. Now you can obviously go to town with the speckles. You can add it all around the image if you want to, decorate your envelope. You've got this whole beautiful ink pad, so I'd recommend you make loads while you've got this. You've used up a lot of your ink from your ink refill, so make the most of it. And then we need to stamp our greetings, so I'm going to stamp the words "so sorry" on here. It's never a nice card to have to make, but it's always handy to have one in your stash, and that covers lots of occasions. So I thought that was a really good one. So here we are. I've got the card bases pre-cut. So all I need to do now, I'm just going to move those out of the way, is stick it all together and then add some gems. So let's assemble it now. And I've cut my mats and layers to be just slightly bigger than the white, and then the bubble bath card is slightly larger than the peach pie, which I've used here to give a nice pop of colour. And then I'm going to stick that on the front of my card. And then the last thing to add are the gems. So I've got the Sorry, I left those over the other side of my desk. They're 24 to 26 in colour shimmer gems, and you can see that they've been well loved and used already. So you can pick up any colour you wish and add them to your pretty card. I think I'll add a little peach one here. And what other one? A light pink. So where shall I pop this one? I think I'll pop it over here. And there you have it. Very simple, but slightly different to the norm by creating your own ink pad. And I hope that you love the use of the speckle. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you joining me today. All right, take care. Thank you.